Hi, I'm Russell Sturgis, founder and principal of EAP Mentor. Welcome to the final instalment in the 6-step series that I've been doing on creating sustainable change. And step 6 in this sequence is about finding an opportunity to be of service. So what we've been doing is looking at this whole idea that there's these 6 steps and necessary in order for changes of how you act, think and behave to become sustainable. And that's what most of us are challenged by, is the ability to sustain the changes that we desire and want. Just at the point of when I'm doing this video, we've just gone through New Year. And of course, invariably at New Year's, people have New Year's resolutions, although I have to say this year I've heard less about it than ever before. And it may be that there may be so many other pressing issues that we're dealing with in Australia right now, with the tragedies of the bushfires, that this isn't a priority. But it's a bit of a joke, of course, that most of us are familiar with, that New Year's resolutions are lucky if they get beyond week 2 of January. So this step is one about being of service. And it's kind of interesting that when we use the word service, people break out into a sweat. And which is kind of unfortunate, because it's such an intrinsic part of enlightened consciousness or higher consciousness. But to make it a little bit more palatable, to have a spoonful of sugar to make the medicine go down, so as to speak, I like to use the word kindness. So instead of becoming more aware of opportunities to serve, it's about becoming aware of opportunities to be kinder to others, to yourself, and obviously to the planet and its critters. So what I want to do is give you some fundamentals about what it takes to incorporate service in a way that is loving to you and to others. And there's just 4 core steps to this, and I think that each one of them are important, and they give some very fine distinctions about the whole notion of service and being kind. Obviously, the first one is the ability to see the opportunity to be kind or to be of service. And that's not possible when we're caught up in our own tragedy, when we're caught up in our own fears, when our story that we've been talking about is rampant in our reality. We don't have the ability to see the needs of others unless our story is being able to meet the needs of others in order to be liked. So in other words, if we happen to have a story that's oriented towards having other people validate us, then we do become aware of the way in which we can please others. And of course, invariably, the dis-ease of this particular narrative is that people give to the point where they burn out, to the point where they have nothing left to give. And that's not what we're talking about here. So the first step for most of us will be about seeing those opportunities to serve. Now, what we're doing, of course, is giving this a context, and it's whatever the particular aspect is that you've identified in terms of the one aspect of the element that you think is something that needs attention, in terms of needs to have greater priority in your reality. And so what you're going to be doing is identifying ways that you can become more aware of this particular element as it relates to other people, and maybe to the planet if it's necessary. But as I said, to do that, you ultimately have to be out of your story, because the story ultimately is egoic, it's egocentric, it's focusing on you, and you can't do that and see the needs of others in a way that's healthy and sustainable. Okay, step number 2 is in identifying somebody's situation, it's about instead of being tempted to give it a meaning, try to seek to understand. So instead of judging where somebody's at or whatever else is going on, take a moment to ask yourself the question, what could this person tell me that would help me understand why they are the way they are, or what it is that they're experiencing, or why this is the way that it is. So instead of immediately jumping to conclusions and placing judgments, which once again, invariably when you get to that place where you start to judge or you draw conclusions, that's actually, once again, it's the ego that's speaking up in that point, and it then all becomes about you. And so be aware of staying in the place of having the inquiry that says, well, what could they tell me, or what could I seek in terms of better knowledge and understanding, which is really what awareness is. It's the next step in awareness that would really help me have a deeper appreciation of this situation. And of course, invariably, what that requires is listening. It actually asks of you to be totally present to this person. It asks of you to ask quality questions without judgment, to be able to really hear without your filters being in the road. And so this second step is a really important one in terms of having your hearing attuned at a heart level. When Jesus is describing in the Christian scripture, for example, about his capacity to heal, and we're talking here really about healing others, he says, when you can see with your eyes, hear with your ears, and understand with your heart. And that's what you're doing here, is that you're adopting the consciousness of seeing, hearing, and understanding so that you have more information. Now, in addition to seeing, hearing, and understanding another, you also want to take a moment to see, hear, and understand yourself in terms of what are the blocks that might be coming up for you? Where are the judgments that might be arising? What's your story, and how could it be impacting on or influencing how you see this other person? And so it's really important that that's added into the mix at this point, is that you have this ability to be able to stop and see and hear and understand who you are in the context of what it is that you're experiencing or seeing in this other person. Step number 3 comes off the back of, obviously, step number 2. And what I would suggest to you is that if you haven't taken the time to become really clear about whose business is whose, in other words, what do you own in how you're relating to this experience, and what does the person or the situation own separate from you, unless you're really clear about that, the problem in terms of how you relate to what's happening is that you can become sympathetic to what's happening as opposed to being empathetic. I like to think of the difference between the two is empathy is about having clear boundaries about whose business is whose. Sympathy is when you superimpose your own suffering, your own challenges, your own narrative onto what you see happening with somebody else. And yes, you identify with what it is that they're experiencing, but in fact, how you respond to that is all about you. And invariably, the indication that you've made that shift from empathy to sympathy, or that you haven't even got into empathy, is that there's going to be feelings of not being sure about how much to give. Have I given too much? Am I being taken advantage of? In other words, fear and scarcity then become intrinsic to how you move forward in your service. Whereas when you come from the place of empathy, you have a really clear sense of boundary about whose business is whose, and so therefore you know what you need to be loving to yourself and have a clear sense of what you can contribute without taking away from your own needs to this other person in terms of what they need and how you can be supportive to them. So step number 3 is becoming really clear about whether you're turning up with a sense of empathy in terms of how you relate to this person or whether you're being driven by sympathy. And I think that's really important to have that clear distinction. And of course, step number 4 then is being able to act compassionately. And as I said, what happens is when we come from sympathy, it appears that we're acting with compassion, but there's a lot of fear behind it. Whereas when you come from that place of empathy and you act with compassion, what I find is interesting is that there's a greater connection to intuition, inspiration, and the way in which you engage what's going on has a whole different feel in terms of the guidance and the way in which you approach what you do. And I get that there's a greater capacity for creativity in terms of how you meet the needs of other people and what it is that you're able to do in terms of serving them. For many years I studied A Course in Miracles, and one of the core principles of A Course in Miracles says that giving and receiving are the same and they happen in the same instant. And one of the beautiful things about that is the point at which you're able to extend that love to another that is based on a sense of compassion and empathy, then it's coming back to you at the same time. And I think that there's such a beautiful gift in this ability to be able to turn up and to be able to act with compassion and empathy, using the enhanced awareness and knowledge and the mindfulness that we have about this particular aspect in the elements that we're working on, that we're able to see an opportunity to make a difference in the world. Now, once again, this reinforces the opportunity for gratitude, because in this place, once you see how you can use the challenges that you've had around this to make a difference to the lives of others and therefore to bless your own life, you come away reinforcing this whole idea of gratitude for what you've had to learn and what you've had to experience for this deficiency. And so there can be a real sense of this has made a real difference in my life and is allowing me to make a difference in the lives of others. So that's basically the core elements of step number 6. And so as we go through these 6 steps and as we take a very strategic approach to this, and I would encourage you to go back and listen to and read the blogs associated with this, create your own list and use this as a tool to be able to help you bring about changes to aspects of your consciousness in terms of how you think, feel and act that you would like to see be more serving to both you and to others. I look forward to being able to share more about the Enhancers Awareness Program with you in the future. I would encourage you to go to our website, eapmentor.com, and please go to Enhancers Awareness Program on Facebook. We have a fantastic Facebook page there where we're constantly putting up very inspirational and inspiring blogs and posts that will help you in your commitment to living with peace and mindfulness and with greater awareness. Of course, Living Mindfully, we have our own magazine. If you go into our website, please go and subscribe to that so that you can receive our monthly online magazine, which is just packed full of really amazing insights into how to live mindfully. And if you're interested in becoming an EAP mentor, once again, have a look at our website and it'll tell you more about that. Anyway, thank you for being a part of this series, and I look forward to speaking to you very shortly. Bye.